Happy Halloween. Leave now while you still can.
Leave now before Master finds you.
Who is that knocking at my door? Who is that knocking at my door? Who is that knocking at my door? Be gone with you.
In today's video to wrap up the George Romero Dead Zombie series, I'm going to do a double review, because unlike the previous movies that were not follow-up sequels, believe it or not, Diary and Survival of the Dead are the only George Romero follow-up sequels in this series. I only have Diary of the Dead on DVD, as you can see. I don't own Survival of the Dead on DVD or Blu-ray, but I don't care about that movie, and you will see why later in this video why that is. Diary of the Dead is the fifth in George Romero's Dead Zombie series. This came out 2 years later after Land of the Dead, that fast. Amazing how this movie came out sooner than later, rather than waiting 10 years later. Well, this movie may not be great or a masterpiece, but I find some good things in it. I can see what George Romero was trying to do. He was trying to appeal to the modern audience at the time when the internet was just starting out to become popular. This was also during the early years when YouTube was becoming big at that time too. The film also has a social commentary when people become relying too much on the internet for news media. But like anything else, there's always a downside and drawback to the internet. The downside of the internet is there's too much information overload. We can't believe everything the internet tells us, and people have a hard time relying on not knowing which resource is true and reliable. It also makes me think how like when this movie came out, everyone was making the transition to new media online in this time period. When watching this movie, it made me think how this is very relevant to today's modern world with internet. Just think about it, how 3 years ago in 2020, when rumors about COVID was spreading around, the internet skyrocketed and caused people to panic. With people relying on online news media, it seems to let people to go in a panic fast. From reading about this movie's reputation, people seem to point out and say this is happening at the same time as Night of the Living Dead. That does not make any sense. Night of the Living Dead takes place in the late 1960s, and this takes place in modern day 2007. Night and this movie are completely different time periods. There was no internet back in the 1960s. I also feel like George Romero was going for the found footage because around this time, the found footage subgenre horror was big because of the Blair Witch Project a few years prior. This movie also came out around the same time as Paranormal Activity and Cloverfield, but by 1 year apart. As I said in my Land of the Dead video, despite this was directed by George Romero, it doesn't feel like George Romero. It feels like someone else directed it. It feels like it was directed by a film major college student. Despite this as a found footage movie, it feels like a big budget for a found footage horror movie. Not like Blair Witch Project, where it was a low budget shot on a simple video camera. The characters are okay, they're nothing special or memorable, just like in Land of the Dead. But I will say these characters are definitely portrayed as late 2000s, stereotypical, obnoxious college students for the time period this movie takes place in. The one guy, Jason Creed, who films the movie and we rarely show his face, is kind of a jerk, rude sometimes. Jason being narcissistic, all he cares about is finishing his movie project while zombie apocalypse is going on. Despite making this movie, it doesn't mean much anymore. He's not going to win an Oscar for his best low-budget mummy horror movie. The part when he goes back to his girlfriend's dorm at the college, as he's filming, he runs into a thief who was stealing something. The guy did not realize that he was on camera, and he did not realize that it could make the film cut. They could have cut this part out, and it would not have affected the movie at all. I get the point what they were going for in this scene. It shows how stealing crime and the rules of society don't matter anymore during a zombie apocalypse. But again, Dawn of the Dead touched upon this better when the characters steal money at the mall. Jason is trying to expose the truth, feeling what the world has become being attacked by zombies. You can also point out how he goes a little bit too far and extreme what he wants to do to accomplish. That Jason has an ego. I could be reading too much into this or could be wrong. I wonder if this was a response of whistleblowers at that time, in the 2000s. When Jason uploads some footage to his MySpace page, makes me think how back in the late 2000s, MySpace was one of the first early big internet social medias at that time. I can't remember the last time I used my old MySpace page. I don't know if I can still go on my old account. MySpace is definitely not big anymore, all because of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I hate it when Jason and his friends are being attacked by zombies. He keeps filming and does not help. What a jerk. At the National Guard base, he's editing his movie rather than checking emails on his family's okay. I'd be checking messages rather than editing a video coming from someone who makes YouTube videos. When Deborah comes in and she tells her that one of the videos Jason posted online got 72,000 hits and views, but Deborah does not care about that. Can't blame her. Jason's girlfriend Deborah was an okay character, likable, sympathetic. You want her to go home to see her family, but sadly, when she arrives at her home, her family are zombies, and she had no choice but to kill them. An okay character, but it's not taught the same way as like Ben, Sarah, or Patrick. She narrates in between the movie explaining how the world changed and how society does not know the truth that our government does not want to know. When the group is kidnapped by the National Guard, the first thing I'm thinking, Day of the Dead, but the army in this movie are not over the top compared to Day of the Dead. One of the National Guard soldier at first, I'm thinking, Rhodes, but that's not the case here. He's a little bit more laid back and a little bit more friendly, not much of a jerk or asshole like Rhodes was. I just don't understand why they did not give him a name in this movie. When Deborah negotiates with him, he lets her and her friends have some food to take on their journey home. Not like Rhodes and Sarah's tension and dislike for each other, and no one trying to dominate one or the other. In one scene, they are pulled over by the army and they steal their canned foods. Again, it goes back to a little bit of Day of the Dead. You can't rely on the army for help, and you're not safe with them. This one girl's from Texas, and her famous catchphrase, she says, "Don't mess with Texas." I don't get it. She's an actress who plays the helpless victim in a mummy movie she's making with her friends. Mara's one of the film crew drives the RV, feels bad and guilty when she runs over the zombies, but again, it's not her fault. She takes her own life by shooting herself, which I'm not sure why that is. This part was like random, but yet she somehow is still alive after shooting herself, and she's taken to an ER, and she turns into a zombie. The film college group reaction to her death was weak and flat. The professor was such a cold character and a very negative person, but at the same time, you understand that he was a Vietnam veteran, and he saw a lot of things happen in Vietnam. He says that after killing people in the war, it's hard to live. The movie can be a little bit too goofy and over the top at times. There's a scene where the group run into this Amish guy who is deaf and mute. He throws a dynamite at the zombies. When I watched this part, I was laughing out loud like, what the heck? This felt like something out of like a spoof movie like the Hot Shots or Airplane movies. His name was Samuel. My first thought was Samuel, like the kid from Harrison Ford Witness movie. The Amish kid's name was Samuel. But again, no coincidence on that one. Sadly, the Amish guy dies. He gets eaten by one of the zombies. Really was an actor who was playing the mummy in a college movie. He goes to some big mansion during the zombie apocalypse with his girlfriend. He invites his friends over. When his friends arrive, they feel safe and feel calm knowing that they are in a safe environment. But then comes a little twist right here. It turns out Ridley killed his family, the maids, the services, and his girlfriend because they were infected and became zombies. He got bit and becomes a zombie himself. Jason films Ridley chasing Tracy to get his film shot he wanted of a slow Walking Dead mummy zombie. What an asshole. After that, Tracy is mad and leaves with the RV and can't blame her. Again, Jason is such a prick. Jason gets killed and Deborah decides to finish Jason's movie, ends on a cliffhanger, or Deborah monologuing, "We are worth saving." It's not a great movie, it was okay, and it's not top the other ones for sure. This movie is not as bad as they say it is, despite it seems to get a mixed reputation. It was interesting how Romero tried something different, what he was going for. Was this the best movie on the internet? Probably not, but it was worth an attempt. Now on to Survival of the Dead, the sixth movie of the George Romero Dead Zombie series. And this is the last movie George Romero ever directed. Diary of the Dead to me was an okay, decent, average movie. This one is a letdown. It's not the worst thing. It's not consistent. Even the great George Romero can't make every movie a masterpiece. The characters are lame, bland, not interesting, have boring personalities. The story is not interesting. It's gotten to the point of becoming cliche, and after watching so many of these movies, You can tell Romero was burnt out and tired of making zombie movies at this point in his film career. He was only making this movie for a paycheck. Unlike Romero Dead Zombie movies, there are no follow-up sequels. This is the only follow-up sequel to the series. The only recurring character from Diary is the soldier from the last movie that stole canned foods and threatened a group of college students. It's not a found footage film like the last movie was. It was interesting how you had two different groups. The soldier group wanted to kill the zombies, and the one group led by Seamus wanted to keep the zombies alive or hoping one day to find a cure. But it's not done well. This idea was done better in Day of the Dead. The movie has a Western feel to it. George Romero said he was inspired from the movie The Big Country, directed by William Wyler. I've never seen that movie, but I'm sure that's a much better movie than this movie is. Despite not being a fan of this movie, it did surprise to have some nice visual shots of getting into the fall season. When one of the characters, Cisco, dies, he's not bitten by a zombie. He bit a zombie's finger and swallowed his blood. That was a little bit of an interesting change-up. Once again, I did not like that they used CGI for the zombie gore blood effects, but the ending only has one practical effect where the zombies are eating flesh. Seeing Sergeant Crockett kick a zombie whose head was on fire, this made me think of the Human Torch from the Fantastic Four. It was sickening to see a zombie's head on a stick. As Patrick Bateman once said on Ed Gein on Women, what her head would look like on a stick. I guess that's what her head would look like. When the character Flynn wants to go back to Delaware and kill an old rival he hates, Sergeant Crockett wants to kill him too and he hates him as much as Flynn does, but why? You didn't know who the guy was. What did Crockett have against him? One of the soldiers was a female named Tomboy, and she was a lesbian. Interesting how Romero created a gay character, the first gay character in a Romero Dead Zombie series. It surprised me to see a masturbation scene in this movie. Her character was meh, not really memorable, well written. Potential, but could have been done better. Along the journey, the soldiers find this boy who has no name. He's annoying but bland as hell, but not interesting, and such a cliche typical teenage kid from the 2000s. And believe me, I know, I was a 2000s teenage kid, but not like that though. The character Seamus is a forgetful villain. He's one of the weakest villain characters in the Romero Dead Zombie movie series. To me, this movie is not memorable. It has no rewatchable value to it at all. I won't ever be rewatching this movie ever again. I will never own it in any home video format. It's sad this was Romero's last movie directed before he died in 2017, and probably not how he would not have wanted to go out. It's sad that George Romero did not go with a bang, making one more good zombie movie before he died in 2017. Before I end this video, I want to briefly talk about this new upcoming Romero Dead Zombie movie, Twilight of the Dead. There have been rumors about another Romero Dead Zombie movie, but honestly, I'm not sure how this will work without him since George Romero passed away in 2017. Before his death, Romero wanted to make another zombie movie called Twilight of the Dead, a follow-up sequel to Land of the Dead, but around this time period in the 2010s, his health was declining. This is what prevented him from making the movie. Also, I would not be surprised and maybe, not that I have proof of this, I wonder because around this time period before his death, the Walking Dead TV show was so popular. Maybe that's another reason, like why he did not make another zombie movie. He probably felt burnt out with the zombie subgenre. He probably wanted to direct other different types of horror movies, and he also felt he could not top The Walking Dead around that time period. But sadly, film studios would not take him seriously, and they typecast him thinking that he was only a zombie horror director, not realizing he could direct different types of horror movies. Studios forgot this man directed other movies outside of zombie movies like Martin, Creepshow, The Crazies, and Monkey Shines. It was rumored that he almost was considered to direct Pet Sematary, Salem's Lot, and The Stand. I only saw Creepshow, one of his non-zombie horror movies. I've never seen any of his other non-zombie horror movies like Martin, The Crazies, but I'd like to check them out at some point for curiosity to see like what else this guy did as a horror director. His widow Suzanne has been attached to working on the project Twilight of the Dead as a consultant. There was an article online recently saying how this project is going forward. It's been greenlighted. Supposedly it's going to be filmed sometime around the end of this year. I'm not sure what the official release date is yet. As I've edited this video, they recently announced that Brad Anderson, the director of The Machinist, will be directing this movie. Honestly, they should just leave the series dead and alone. Without George Romero directing a Dead Zombie movie, it wouldn't be the same without him. May George Romero rest in peace, he will be missed. Despite being a zombie horror director, this guy made other good non-zombie horror movies. He wasn't just a zombie horror director, he was a great horror film director, period. That wraps up this year's horror franchise movie reviews. Throughout the rest of the month, you will see random horror movie miscellaneous movie reviews throughout the rest of October. This upcoming Halloween is going to be a special movie review. Stay tuned for that.